And it is the holidays, and that means travel chaos and delays are once again perhaps in the cards. On Wednesday, a vehicle exploded at a checkpoint at the U.S.-Canada border. A day ahead of Thanksgiving, U.S. officials have closed the bridge while the FBI investigates. Authorities say there is no sign that it was a terror attack. At the same time, a series of storms is sweeping across parts of the U.S. That could potentially disrupt travel. Airports are expecting a record number of travelers. It is recommended that you get to the airport as early as possible. And a super busy Thanksgiving travel week, of course. Officials are warning people to pack their patience. Karina Mitchell has more.
Well, the travel crush is on in America, and if you're planning to fly either domestically or into the United States, the Transportation Security Administration says Wednesday is one of the 3 busiest days during the Thanksgiving holiday travel period to do so. In fact, the TSA estimates it will screen a record 30 million passengers by November 28th. That's next Tuesday. But the big question is, will people get to their destination and their Thanksgiving meals on time, given jam-packed airport and bad weather expected to hit in about 24 states. Severe storms already created havoc in parts of the South, including Mississippi and Louisiana. And in the Northeast, rain and gusty winds, along with ice and snow in some areas, made traveling conditions more challenging. So far, only a handful of delays here at LaGuardia, but that didn't stop travelers we spoke to from getting to the airport early. So you're here several hours earlier?
Yes, like 5. I don't want to say 5.
Yeah, I just had to make sure that I gave myself enough time because, yeah, I was aware that, like, it's a crazy busy day in terms of the airports and everything, but got to do what you got to do.
For one passenger, it wasn't just about getting to the Thanksgiving dinner table on time. He had more on his mind.
My cousin decided to get married on Thanksgiving, so I had no choice. I don't know where we're having Thanksgiving, maybe an Applebee's or something, but hopefully the wedding will make up for the travel and I'll have a good time.
American roads will be jammed too. The American Automobile Association, better known in the U.S. as AAA, predicts more than 55 million Americans will be traveling 50 miles or more from home. That's about 80 kilometers. AAA says most people, around 50 million, will be traveling by car, and about 1.5 million are expected to jump on a bus or train or take a cruise. Now, the TSA says it expects Sunday to be the busiest travel day of the Thanksgiving holiday. It expects about 2.9 million passengers to travel through security checkpoints at the nation's airports. And if you're planning to drive, AAA suggests making sure to leave early in the morning or after 6 p.m. to beat the worst of the traffic. No matter what, remember to pack your patience. At LaGuardia Airport, Karina Mitchell, CGTN, New York.
Patience, always a good thing, especially during the holiday rush. And of course, for those who are used to this, there are add-on fees for everything from extra legroom to priority boarding to lounge access, which actually pushes the cost of the flight or the final costs even higher. Some think the airlines have a business strategy designed to make passengers feel less comfortable, just so they could fork out more money. Nitza Soledad Perez investigates that angle.
There are plenty of reasons to book Main Cabin Extra. Maybe you need a little extra room to relax.
Want to move up from the C or B boarding groups to the first part of the A group? It's easy with upgraded boarding starting at $30 per flight segment.
There are many options for upgrades on a flight, but all these extras cost money. Flyers are opening their wallets to pay extra for what used to be the minimum, like seat selection, meal service, or baggage allowance. Airlines know there's money to be made by upselling extras. One Columbia Law School professor famously described his airline strategy as calculated misery, making flying so dreadful that customers are willing to pay more to escape it.
If I could pay $1,000 US to just get rid of all different barriers to getting on a flight, I'd pay $1,000 US.
I look at it like it makes sense. If they could charge this, if they could charge it, they should, you know?
Are you paying allowed to travel with the entire family?
Yes.
And how are you making sure that all of you are seated together?
We pay for seating.
And it works. Revenue from these extra fees are expected to reach a record $118 billion this year. But this calculated misery principle and implementation has not gotten noticed by unhappy consumers.
And passengers say fees are getting worse. Many flyers are reporting being unexpectedly charged for checking in at the airport and printing their boarding passes.
It feels like every time you get on a plane, it's like you have to pay you have to pay a fee for everything. Like you have to pay for food, for snacks, like things that we used to get before, like sandwich or something, or like it's almost like it's like a tiered kind of experience. You have the people in economy, you have the people in first class, and then they are now adding different classes in the middle that you could also pay for. So it seems like they're just kind of making it almost worse and even more like unbearable to fly.
I feel like it's a business, you know. Right now, as more people you can pack in a plane, it's better for them. So it's tough. I mean, I'm on the side of business, but on the side as a user, it's hard. It's getting harder to fly.
The issue of fees even made it into this year's State of the Union.
And will prohibit airlines from charging $50 round trip for a family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage. Americans are tired of being. We're tired of being played for suckers.
But all that torment is not stopping travelers from flying.
We're expecting a 4% increase over last year. It's busy. I mean, the airport is busy right now. COVID's over, and people want to get out and about, and they want to travel.
Proving that the airline fee strategy is effective for the industry and not likely to disappear anytime soon. Mitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
Our resident travel expert is going to help us out here, at least for the holidays. Michael Taylor, Managing Director, Travel, Hospitality, and Retail. JD Power, good to see you again. So, are these folks just a bunch of whiners, or are we really, at least at the bottom rung of travelers, truly suffering more than we were years ago?
Well, they are suffering a little bit more because the planes are a lot more crowded than they used to be, because we have a pilot shortage that's been going on for the last 12 or 13 years. And that really, having that middle seat filled in economy is what really is probably the biggest swing factor. That's free real estate that people normally wouldn't pay for. But now there's somebody sitting in that seat, and that makes the misery index a little bit higher. But just to kind of give a fine point as to why the airlines are doing what they're doing, it's a really reaction to how people shop for tickets these days. They go online and they rank order the cheapest flight to wherever they're traveling to. And airlines have got to be in that first page, or that maybe even the second page. And to do that, they've disaggregated all these charges that were in this previous story.
You mean the airlines? You mean the airlines are responding to our need of wanting the best seat for the least amount of money, and so they show the $99 offer, and then we click on it and we buy it, and then we realize it's actually not $99 because there's 50 bucks for this and 50 bucks for that, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily that they want to make it that way. They found out that they can get people to choose their brand if they're on that first page of a search engine or a ticket search, and that's why they're doing this. And they do find that it does add to the bottom line. People are willing to pay these costs. And that is in fact, that is pure profit for the airlines. So it's something that's really been in response to the way that people shop for tickets online now, rather than through a travel agent like they used to 20, 30 years ago.
I was recently looking at flights, say DC to Seattle, for example, anywhere between $500 and $700 one way. And granted, this is towards the end of the year, so it's a little bit busier. And I was trying to figure out, have airfares gone up or down compared to last year? Because sometimes I feel like they've gone down, but other times I feel like they've spiked them up, and they've really tried to keep them there.
Well, it all depends on the route that you're traveling to and the demand for that particular route. It has really nothing to do with the length of the flight at all. It's the demand and what the traffic will bear as far as a ticket price. So that's really the main determinant of pricing. But yeah, prices have leveled off a little bit from where they are. They're still high compared to 2019, very high compared to 2019, but they have leveled off a little bit, which probably gives you that impression that things are a little bit cheaper when they're actually probably about the same as they were about a year and a half ago.
I was talking to an airline executive, and we had a heated debate about these change fees. Airlines used to make just a ton of money on change fees, and that's when you book a flight for Monday, but you change your mind and you want to go, Friday instead. So you call, you go online, you change it, and it's a $50 change fee or a $100 change fee. These airlines, pre-pandemic, made just a boatload of money, but nowadays you go online and it's like, oh, well, free changes and free this, and then like they've somehow waived all this. This was one of their big money makers. You think they might bring that back, maybe?
Well, they do go in and out of style. An airline like Southwest doesn't have those change fees, and they make that work for them. The rest of them do. They do consider it to be a very large profit center. I think probably in previous discussions with you, I've said that I've mentioned to several major airline CEOs when they ask, well, how can we get higher in the J.D. Power rankings? And I'd say, stop having a change fee and stop charging for bags. And then they turn a little bit pale because it's, that's Michael, that's $200 million to us every year. I said, well, it's not cheap, but you asked me how you get up in the rankings. That's how you do it.
Billions.
It's probably the biggest irritant for anybody traveling.
I think when we talked about this stuff last year, we were whining and complaining about the lack of pilots, the lack of staff, the airports being crowded. I mean, that stuff's not new, but the labor market has loosened up a bit, and I'm wondering, do we still have the shortage of professionals? And I will also include our friends at the air traffic control booth as well.
Yeah, well, the short answer is that this is a very long-term proposition to get pilots. To become a co-pilot, you have to have 1,500 hours of experience flying any kind of aircraft. It used to be 250 hours. So that really slows down the people who can become pilots eventually. And you're right, there is a little bit of shortage of air traffic controllers, about 7 or 8%. It's not nearly as big a determinant of dissatisfaction as the shortage of airline pilots is right now. But on the other hand, the airport experience is a little bit better. We do a tracking study of airports at J.D. Power. We look at the top 66 airports in North America, and they are improving slightly because you can get a cup of coffee more often and later at night and earlier in the morning than you could a couple of years ago.
Well, there is one way to get back at these airlines. You probably know where I'm going with this, but Mr. Taylor, your flight has been overbooked, and we're gonna have to bump you today. What are you asking for? What do you get?
Well, there is various redress that you can have. You really have to be aware of what kind of ticket you just bought. Just in your previous segment, they were talking about the basic economy fares, which don't give you very many rights. But if you are paying for a more expensive ticket, you're more likely to get your money back. And they will try and rebook you on something else. It's just not as easy as it used to be because planes are so full that the next available seat might be 2 days from now, which is what happened to me on my last trip. Back from Sacramento. They said, well, I wanted to rebook, and they said, well, there's nothing available for the next 3 days going to New York City. And so it really isn't as magic as it used to be. Again, because that middle seat used to be empty, and you could be on that middle seat if you tried to rebook, but there just isn't any room on the aircraft anymore.
You would think they would take care of you and make sure their J.D. Power ranking would not drop. I'll let you handle that. Hey, good to see you. Really appreciate the insights on this. Have yourself a great Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we will talk to you before Christmas. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Phil.